Welcome to Firearms Friday from the Wyoming State Museum here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm Evan Green. I'm the firearms historian for the museum. And today we're going to talk about this Whitney Phoenix rolling block or falling block musket, primarily military design. And it has two interesting connections, I think, to Wyoming and Wyoming history. This particular model of the Whitney Phoenix, there were about 15,000 of these made, and almost all of them were made under contract to South American countries. So they are fairly rare to be found in any condition in the United States. A few of them went to state militias. This one has stamped on the top, Freund and Bro. Well, who were Freund and Bro? They were Frank and George Freund. They were Germans. They came to the United States shortly before the Civil War. Frank served in the Civil War on the Union side, and after the Civil War, they followed the western progress of the Union Pacific Railroad as it launched out across the West to eventually unite with the Pacific Union, the other Union Railroad coming the other direction, coming from the west. And they would set up a tent at these end-of-track towns and sell hunting and fishing gear, equipment, knives, ammunition, and firearms. And after the railroad was completed, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, they opened gun shops in Laramie. Possibly the first frame building in Laramie was a Freund and Bros gun shop. And they had a very elaborate store in Cheyenne called Wyoming Armory. And the advertisements for that shop say that they've got 500 to 1,000 firearms in stock and 500,000 to 1,000,000 rounds of ammunition. So they were prominent citizens in Cheyenne. They eventually opened shops also in Denver and Durango, Colorado. So this particular firearm was donated to the museum by Tim McCoy in 1920. Well, who was Tim McCoy? If you're a fan of early black and white silent westerns, you might recognize the name because he made almost 90 western movies between about 1925 and 1942. He was born in Schenectady, New York, and his father was the chief of police there, which gave young Tim McCoy access to Buffalo Bill's Wild West show when it arrived for a performance in Schenectady. And Tim was fascinated by the legends of the West as portrayed by Buffalo Bill. So when he was 18, he bought a one-way ticket to Wyoming. He ended up in Lander, and he worked on a ranch there and became quite skilled in horseback riding and roping and shooting, and also was fascinated by Native American culture. So he was eventually adopted into the Northern Cheyenne Nation and given the name High Eagle. He was a participant in World War I. He was trained as an artillery officer, but was still at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, when World War II ended. In 1919, he was appointed by the governor of Wyoming as the adjutant general for the state and given the brevet rank of brigadier general, when he was at 28, the youngest brigadier general in the history of the Army. So he held that post until 1923, when he resigned. He had purchased a small ranch in the Owl Mountains, would have been north of Lander, but still in that vicinity, and he continued to pursue his interest in Native American culture. And this led to a job opportunity for him when Hollywood had recruited a large number of Native Americans for an early silent film. So McCoy went to Hollywood and worked with the Native Americans and helped them with that process. So once he got to Hollywood, he's a handsome guy. We've got some pictures of him. And notice that enormous hat. That was kind of his trademark. I don't think I'll trade my open road for one of those, but interesting hat choice. So again, he made almost 90 movies and survived the transition from silent movies to talkies. Made 9 movies in 1935 alone. So they were all about an hour long. They're all out there on YouTube if you want to watch one. Pretty formulaic stuff, you know. There's the bad guys and the good guys and chases on horseback and gunfights. Interesting, one of those very early movies, Tim McCoy and the love interest are in the front talking to the sheriff, and in the background is this big tall guy, immediately recognizable as one of the very early movie appearances of John Wayne. So not only did Tim McCoy survive that transition from silent pictures to talkies, he eventually had his own TV show, The Tim McCoy Show, and won an Emmy for it. So he was kind of a Renaissance man, a master of many different trades. He also tried to start his own Wild West show and picked a bad time. It was the 1930s, and his show was not a success and went bankrupt. He also was a performer. He traveled with the Ringling Brothers Circus doing rope and riding tricks. So that was Tim McCoy. Kind of news to me as a Wyomingite that there was that connection with him. Again, he served also in World War II and did go to Europe in World War II, primarily in an administrative and management role, and never returned to Wyoming after the war, but retired to his property in Pennsylvania. So, Tim McCoy, Freunten Bros, Whitney Phoenix falling block. It's kind of an odd action. It opens like this, which makes me think the ejection can't be very robust on this particular gun. But again, one of those attempts to adapt to fixed cartridges after the Civil War. Again, circa 1870s, 1880s for this particular model. Thanks for watching.